Terrance Howard is in the news lately, following his highly viewed appearance on the Joe Rogan podcast, in which Howard revealed his theories regarding the origin and nature of the universe. During the interview, Howard shocked the world when he claimed that 1 times 1 equals 2. Another thing Howard has touched on during recent interviews is a lawsuit that he is currently involved in. The following is a full reading of a lawsuit that acclaimed actor Terrance Howard has filed against talent management company CAA. In it, Howard alleges wrongdoing by the company that resulted in Howard losing tens of millions of dollars in compensation. Here is a brief clip of Howard talking about the suit on the Straight Talk with Daphne show. You can find a link to the entire show in the description.
I'm just saying.
CAA, Creative Artists Agency, they represented me. Mm-hmm. They also represented some of the people from Big Bang Theory. Mm-hmm. They also did the deal with Fox. Mm-hmm. My show was with Fox. The people from Big Bang was with Fox. Mm-hmm. We had 28 million viewers. They had 11 million viewers. Yeah. They were getting $2 million, damn near $3 million an episode, those white kids that had no name recognition, no Oscar nominations, none of that. We have 28 million viewers, and these jokers are paying me $325,000 an episode. And I'm like, every year I'm asking my agents, what's going on? I didn't know they owe me over $120 million based on what would have been paid.
As a note, the voice used in this production is generated by artificial intelligence and was selected to give the proper feel to the reading of the lawsuit. Though we do read the lawsuit in its entirety, we did omit an uninteresting opening section in which the suit consumes various paragraphs naming the parties. And now we begin.
Facts common to all causes of action. Howard is an elite award-winning actor whose career in Hollywood has expanded over the course of 30 years. Having appeared in over 50 films and 20 television shows, Howard, considered one of the most versatile actors in Hollywood, has landed roles in many critically acclaimed blockbuster hits, including Mr. Holland's Opus, Crash, Ray, The Best Man, Iron Man, and his 2005 performance in the film Hustle and Flow, which landed him the coveted Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. In 2008, Howard entered into an oral talent agency agreement with CAA to be represented as an actor. Howard agreed to pay CAA commissions in accordance with industry customs and practice in exchange for CAA services as his talent agent. Specifically, the oral agreement provided for 10% commissions payable to CAA on any monetary sums or other consideration which Howard earned or received for any assignments, employments, or engagements on any project substantially negotiated while Howard was represented by CAA, the talent agency agreement. In employing CAA as his talent agency, Howard did not agree to enter into an agreement with CAA where he would be in direct competition for funds with CAA and would be left to advocate for himself against his supposed representatives. In or around early 2014, Howard was approached by the acclaimed producer, director, writer Lee Daniels, who at the time had an overall deal with the television network 20th Century Fox about a pilot project in which was he created along with co-creator Danny Strong. Like Howard, both Daniels and Strong were also represented by CAA. The pilot project was titled Empire, the TV show or Empire, and Howard was offered the lead role as a character named Lucius Lyons, a former drug dealer turned hip-hop mogul and the founder and longtime CEO of Empire Entertainment. Having read the script provided to him by Daniels, Howard contacted his agent Bugliari and informed him that he was excited about the prospect of moving forward with Daniels' project and asked him to begin negotiating a deal on his behalf. The production companies hired to produce and show-run the project was the acclaimed Imagine Entertainment Imagine, Lee Daniels Production, LDP, and Danny Strong Productions, DSP, and collectively with Imagine and LDP, the production companies. Again, all three production companies were represented by CAA. On or about February 18, 2014, having reviewed the script for the pilot project, Howard entered into an agreement for pilot and series options with 20th Century Fox Television, Fox, or the network, where Howard agreed to be paid $125,000 in exchange for acting services over a period of 3 days in order to film the pilot episode, The Pilot Agreement. In addition to the initial pilot episode fee, the pilot agreement set forth an episodic fee schedule for several seasons, should the network choose to pick up the show following the broadcast of the pilot episode. The pilot agreement was negotiated between the production companies and Howard's agents, who also served as Howard's legal counsel. During the negotiations of the deal, CAA informed Howard that it was serving as the packaging agent for the project, and because of that, they were willing to waive their standard 10% agency. CAA further informed Howard that because they were the packaging agent for the project, their compensation was being built into the project's budget and paid separately. With great trust in his agents, having been working with the agency for nearly 6 years, Howard, although unfamiliar with the particularities involved in these types of packaging deals, he continued to believe that his agents were serving his best interest at all times, and that it was commendable of them to avoid double dipping on fees obtained as the packaging agent and those fees obtained from their actors. Despite this feeling of trust, it would be years later that Howard would discover that CAA was in fact keeping his best interests at the forefront and instead placed their own financial interests as well as the interests of the production companies they also represented ahead of his own. As has been more recently raised in several suits brought by writers, actors, and other talent, and most notably the Writers Guild of America, the packaging fee model of the major talent agencies, including CAA, harms both writers and actors. As described by the WGA, packaging fees are generally based on a 3-3-10 formula, with the upfront fee defined as 3% of the license fee paid by the studio for the program. The deferred fee, also defined as 3% of the license fee paid by the studio for the program, and the profit participation, defined as 10% of the program's modified adjusted gross profits. The license fee, used to determine that portion of the packaging fee, is an amount set by the production company or negotiated between the agency and the production company as part of the packaging fee agreement. As further described by the WGA, packaging fees generate hundreds of millions of dollars per year in revenue for the agencies, far more than they would earn from a traditional 10% commission from their clients. The agencies have used the income generated through packaging to raise private capital, and their business has become so lucrative that some agencies are now planning to become publicly held corporations. In this instance, CAA represented producers Daniels and Strong, the production companies, and most major actors for the project, excluding lead actress Taraji Henson. While Howard was not privy to all the terms of CAA's packaging deal, he is informed and believes, and thereon alleges, that as a result of CAA's representation of most major components of the project, their profit participation was significantly larger than the industry standard, and while Howard was aware that CAA was packaging the project and receiving a fee, Howard had no idea the type of conflicts of interest CAA was faced with by not only having their own financial interests incorporated into the project, but they also represented talent and the production companies, which have diametrical interests in that producers want to keep the top-line production budget as low as reasonably possible, while actors want to be paid the maximum value of their services rendered. On January 7, 2015, Empire had its debut broadcast of the pilot reaching an audience of an astounding 9.90 million viewers, marking Fox's highest-rated debut in 3 years. As a result, Empire was an instant success, not only exceeding the network's viewership expectations, but also bringing in significant praise by critics throughout the entertainment industry. Empire's grip on American viewers was so significant that in its debut season, it rivaled the NFL with an overall Nielsen rating in the coveted 1849 demographic of 7.1 or 17.33 million viewers per episode versus the NFL that had rating of 7.3. In fact, Empire's unprecedented success was described by Variety magazine. No series in the history of Nielsen's People Meters, going back to 1991, had grown with the first 5 episodes following its premiere, and Empire has now bested that by 2 weeks. Furthermore, as described by Forbes magazine, Empire was the most valuable show on broadcast TV during its broadcast over 6 seasons, with the first runs and reruns of the show brought in $125.5 million in ad revenue in 2016 and $124.5 million in 2015, according to iSpot.tv. The show was a financial bonanza for Fox, the production companies, and CAA. Following 2 seasons of Empire consisting of 12 episodes and 18 episodes respectively, it had become clear that given Howard's star power and the unprecedented success TV show, the pilot agreement was woefully underpaying him at a rate of $125,000 per episode. In or around June 27, 2016, follows the assistance of Howard's then-retained counsel Eric Hyman, Howard was able to renegotiate his per-episodic fees by double, although that was still below the standard of the star lead actor on an extraordinarily popular and successful television show. In or around 2018, as Empire continued to bring in hundreds of millions of dollars in profits through advertising revenue, merchandising, and the syndication and resale of past seasons through streaming services, Howard once again returned to his agents at CAA requesting that his overall salary be increased to reflect comparable compensation packages that are received by his lead actor counterparts for those television shows who have reached similar success as Empire has. During a series of communications between Howard and his agents Catcher, Bugliari, and Tiber in 2018, Howard's agent submitted to him a list of comparisons for fees received by a number of lead actors that were presented to him to be within a similar position. Included in this list were actors Kevin Spacey from House of Cards and Jon Hamm from Mad Men, who topped the list at a total episodic fee, including all compensation for acting services, for Season 4 of $450K and $350K, respectively. As it relates to Hamm, despite making a higher episodic fee than Howard, Mad Men's viewership was a fraction of Empire's success, only averaging approximately 1.3 million viewers per episode, while House of Cards was approximately 3 million viewers per episode. The other actors listed from the Alphabet networks did not have ratings remotely close to Howard. Because Howard was being represented by CAA and having no experience as it relates to what a reasonable total episodic fee should be, and further having no access to such information regarding other actors similarly situated as him, he reasonably believed that the comparisons that his agents were provided to him were an accurate reflection of what he should be paid. Following this discussion, CAA failed to make any good faith effort to assist Howard in renegotiating his overall compensation for services rendered to reflect the compensation that he should have really been receiving. Their justification for refusing to extend such efforts to renegotiate Howard's total compensation per season, despite representing the vast majority of the main actors on the project, was based upon the comparable figures discussed above that Howard relied upon as an accurate depiction for the lead actor on a show as successful as Empire. Despite Howard's attempts to discuss the renegotiation of his compensation package with Fox, with the support of his agents, those discussions went nowhere. Although entering into its 6th season, Empire was still a massively popular hit with ratings still in the 6 million viewers per episode, given the impasse on increasing Howard's fees and some additional distractions related to other actors on the show. The 6th season would eventually be the series' final season, with the last episode airing on April 21, 2020. Sometime in or around 2021, Howard discovered that the representations made by his agents regarding the comparisons discussed in 2018 were in fact misleading, as they were presented to Howard as a total compensation fee beyond just talent fees per episode, and further they did not actually reflect the fees Howard would have been entitled by excluding other broadcast network and streaming shows that were similarly popular, such as Game of Thrones, Gilmore Girls, Big Bang Theory, and others. Had Howard been provided that information, which would have more accurately reflected what his compensation should have been, as Howard's agent, CAA would have been duty-bound to make their best efforts to renegotiate Howard's compensation to accurately reflect what he should have been paid for such a popular television. However, not only did it become abundantly clear that his agents led him on a path to rely on information that was misleading, he discovered that this was the result of the fact that CAA was not acting in his best interest, but in the interest of their own financial benefit, as well as the interest of the production companies and the producers, Daniels and Strong. Under normal circumstances, had CAA not been the packaging agent, and had CAA not been concurrently representing the production companies, where their sole financial interest would have been the 10% fee from the compensation received by Howard, they would have most certainly fought for Howard in a manner that most producers are accustomed to seeing CAA agents engage in. First cause of action: breach of fiduciary duty, as against all defendants. Plaintiff, as if fully set forth herein, restates and incorporates by reference, as though fully set forth herein, the allegations contained in each of the paragraphs above. At all relevant times, and as described above, CAA, Bugliari, Tiber, and Catcher owed Howard the absolute and complete duty of fidelity owed as his agent and agent's company. In particular, CAA had a duty of loyalty and the duty to avoid conflicts of interest and to refrain from self-dealing. CAA, Bugliari, Tiber, and Catcher breached their fiduciary duty to Howard by engaging in self-dealing by receiving commissions from both sides of a transaction and causing a conflict of interest. CAA further breached its fiduciary duty by recommending its client, Howard, place himself in a transaction that the talent agency would benefit beyond its standard fee from the client. CAA further willfully breached its fiduciary duty to Howard by placing its own interests above that of its client and by increasing its own profits at the expense of Howard's, which constituted a breach of the duty of loyalty. CAA further willfully breached its fiduciary duty to Howard with the representation under numerous conflicts of interest without obtaining valid, informed consent to those conflicts of interest from Howard, including the representation of the production companies and producers Daniels and Strong, whose interests were inapposite of his. CAA further breached its fiduciary duty to Howard by concealing pertinent and necessary financial information about comparisons of similarly situated actors, despite numerous requests for full transparency on behalf of Howard on this issue in order to renegotiate his talent agreement for compensation that accurately reflects what he should have received. As a direct and proximate result of defendants' breaches of fiduciary duties owed to Howard, as a result of CAA's willful breaches, Howard suffered significant damages, including but not limited to lost wages, lost employment opportunities, and other economic losses. Howard is informed and believes that defendants committed the aforementioned acts maliciously, fraudulently, and oppressively, with the wrongful intention of injuring Howard, from an improper and evil motive amounting to malice, and in conscious disregard of Howard's rights. Moreover, Howard is informed and believes that CAA's officers, directors, and/or managers authorized and ratified the foregoing wrongful acts. Howard is therefore entitled to recover punitive damages from defendants according to proof. Second cause of action: constructive fraud, as against all defendants. Plaintiff, as if fully set forth herein, restates and incorporates by reference, as though fully set forth herein, the allegations contained in each of the paragraphs above. Pursuant to California Civil Code 1573, constructive fraud consists in any breach of duty, without an actually fraudulent intent, gains an advantage to the person in fault, or anyone claiming under him, by misleading another to his prejudice, or to the prejudice of anyone claiming under him. Further, an agent's breach of his or her fiduciary duty to a principal thus constitutes constructive fraud, specifically, the failure of a fiduciary to disclose a material fact to his principal that might affect the fiduciary's motives or the principal's decision constitutes constructive fraud, regardless of whether the fiduciary acted with fraudulent intent. At all relevant times and described above, CAA, Bugliari, Tiber, and Catcher committed constructive fraud by breaching its fiduciary duty to Howard, by placing its own interests above Howard's, and by increasing its own profits at the expense of Howard, which constituted a breach of the duty of loyalty. CAA further willfully breached its fiduciary duty to Howard with the representation under numerous conflicts of interest without obtaining valid, informed consent to those conflicts of interest from Howard. On information and belief, CAA and defendant agents committed constructive fraud by failing to disclose to Howard material facts known to CAA and defendant agents, which material facts might affect CAA's motives or, if disclosed to Howard, would have affected Howard's decision, including but not limited to the following. A. Concealing the fact that CAA was profiting directly as producers from the program's budget or revenues. B. Concealing the fact of the more accurate comparisons to total compensation Howard should have been received based upon his stature and success of the TV show. C. Concealing the fact that CAA intentionally failed to act in good faith to negotiate for Howard comparable compensation on the basis that they favored their own interests and the interests of the production companies and producers Daniels and Strong. D. Concealing the fact that CAA generally makes more for shows than Howard is paid for those same shows. And F. Concealing the fact that CAA's compensation is often tied to the budget of a particular production rather than the amount paid to Howard, and therefore CAA is incentivized to reduce the amount paid to Howard in order to increase the amount of the budget available to compensate CAA. As a direct and proximate result of defendants' breaches of fiduciary duties owed to Howard, as a result of CAA's willful breaches, Howard suffered significant damages, including but not limited to lost wages, lost employment opportunities, and other economic losses. Howard is informed and believes that defendants committed the aforementioned acts maliciously, fraudulently, and oppressively with the wrongful intention of injuring Howard from an improper and evil motive amounting to malice and in conscious disregard of Howard's rights. Moreover, Howard is informed and believes that CAA's officers, directors, and/or managers authorized and ratified the foregoing wrongful acts. Howard is therefore entitled to recover punitive damages from defendants according to proof. Third cause of action: fraudulent representations, as against all defendants. Plaintiff, as if fully set forth herein, restates and incorporates by reference, as though fully set forth herein, the allegations contained in each of the paragraphs above. As set forth in the second cause of action above at all relevant times and described above, CAA, Bugliari, Tiber, and Catcher committed constructive fraud by breaching its fiduciary duty to Howard, by placing its own interests above Howard's, and by increasing its own profits at the expense of Howard, which constituted a breach of the duty of loyalty. CAA further willfully breached its fiduciary duty to Howard with the representation under numerous conflicts of interest without obtaining valid, informed consent to those conflicts of interest from Howard. On information and belief, CAA and defendant agents committed constructive fraud by failing to disclose to Howard material facts known to CAA and defendant agents, which material facts might affect CAA's motives or, if disclosed to Howard, would have affected Howard's decision, including but not limited to the following. A. Concealing the fact that CAA was profiting directly as producers from the program's budget or revenues. B. Concealing the fact of the more accurate comparisons to total compensation Howard should have been received based upon his stature and success of the TV show. C. concealing the fact that CAA intentionally failed to act in good faith to negotiate for Howard comparable compensation on the basis that they favored their own interests and the interests of the production companies and producers Daniels and Strong. D, concealing the fact that CAA generally makes more for shows than Howard is paid for those same shows. And F, concealing the fact that CAA's compensation is often tied to the budget of a particular production rather than the amount paid to Howard, and therefore CAA is incentivized to reduce the amount paid to Howard in order to increase the amount of the budget available to compensate CAA. Defendants' misrepresentations and assurances in this regard were designed to entice plaintiff at plaintiff's significant detriment and expense. Moreover, defendant at all times knew that plaintiff was heavily relying upon the foregoing representations in agreeing to the compensation packages he was provided. At the time the defendant made the foregoing material representations and promises to plaintiff, such representations and promises were false, and, in addition, defendants had no intention of fully performing under the terms of the talent agreement and knew that all such representations were false when made. Plaintiff acted in justifiable reliance upon the defendant's material misrepresentations, promises, and assurances as, at the time defendant made such representations, plaintiff did not know of the falsity of the representations and, in addition, were not aware of defendant's complete lack of intention to fully perform as required at all times as a talent agent. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's breaches of fiduciary duties owed to Howard, as a result of CAA and defendant agents' willful breaches, Howard suffered significant damages, including but not limited to lost wages, lost employment opportunities, and other economic losses. Howard is informed and believes that defendants committed the aforementioned acts maliciously, fraudulently, and oppressively, with the wrongful intention of injuring Howard, from an improper and evil motive amounting to malice and in conscious disregard of Howard's rights. Moreover, Howard is informed and believes that CAA's officers, directors, and/or managers authorized and ratified the foregoing wrongful acts. Howard is therefore entitled to recover punitive damages from defendants according to proof. Wherefore, plaintiff prays for judgment against the defendants as follows: for compensatory, general, and special, according to proof; for exemplary and/or punitive damage, as permitted by the law, for prejudgment and post-judgment interest; for costs of suit herein incurred; for such other and further relief as the court may deem just and proper.